Hey guys, it's time to study God's Word again. Today we're in Genesis chapter 46, so if you want to turn to that, please do so. But just a quick recap on what has happened thus far in this story of Joseph and his family. The 7 years were in 7 years of famine were in full swing at this time. It had reached as far as Canaan, out to Joseph's long-lost family out there. His brothers had been sent into Egypt to purchase some grain there, twice in fact by now. And the second time Joseph finally revealed his true identity to his brothers, and they were more than a little afraid of them, understandably so, afraid of what he might do to them. After all, he had already put them in prison for 3 days on their first trip there, and kept one of the brothers for an extended period of time, maybe as much as a year, that he had spent some time before the brothers came back in the second trip to Egypt. What would he do now to them? That was the question I'm sure that was going on in their minds. Would he get revenge for their treacherous actions towards him years earlier? Of course not. They had a tearful reunion, and he sent them back to their father with good news. Plus, they were to return to Egypt and wait out the famine there as a whole family. They would be fed, and they would survive the remainder years of this famine with plenty. The brothers made it back to their father Jacob, and relayed the news to their father. He did not believe them at first, but he couldn't deny the proof in all the riches and the supplies that his sons had brought back from Egypt. Jacob believed, and so he made his own preparations to move. We can only imagine the thoughts that were racing through the mind of this aged Jacob at the moment. It had to be joy to think of his son Joseph. I mean, he was actually alive. Not only that, but he was now second in charge of Egypt. I'm sure the father was more than a little hurt and more than angry at his other sons now that he knew the truth and how they had dealt with Joseph years earlier. I mean, they had kept up the lie and the deception for years now. Nonetheless, the caravan readies itself to move from Canaan to Egypt. Now let's look at verses 1 through 4 of chapter 46. So Israel set out with all that was his, and when he reached Beersheba, he offered sacrifices to the God of his father Isaac. And God spoke to Israel in a vision at night and said, "Jacob, Jacob." "Here I am," he replied. "I am God, the God of your father," he said. "Do not be afraid to go down to Egypt, for I will make you into a great nation there. I will go down to Egypt with you, and I will surely bring you back again. And Joseph's own hand will close your eyes." So Beersheba becomes a really important site, an important stop for Abraham and Isaac, and now Jacob as well. The former two had constructed altars there and had worshipped the Lord there. Now Jacob did the same thing, perhaps in response to seeing the altars that his father and grandfather had constructed. I don't know. Whatever the case, Jacob reveals again his faith in the Lord and his desire to worship the Lord, the one and only true God. So God honors him. He appears to Jacob in a vision at night. He reassures him that this move was pleasing in the sight of God, and it was necessary. God would use this situation to actually prosper Israel and make them into a nation, a great nation. Jacob was no doubt familiar with the promises that God had made to his ancestors, including the prophecy that they would spend some 400 years in a strange land, and that they would one day return to the promised land. It would be their land. And on top of that, the promise to prosper these people as a nation, that they would be as numerous as the grains of sand on the beach, or the stars in the sky. So now the following verses include a plethora of names that are hard to pronounce, so forgive me if I mispronounce any of them or get tongue-tied. So bear with me. Keep in mind, these names mark the beginning of the nation of Israel, particularly the 12 tribes of Israel. This is the beginning of what we read about later on in the Exodus and beyond. So let's look at verses 5 through 27. Then Jacob left Beersheba, and Israel's sons took their father Jacob and their children and their wives in the carts that Pharaoh had sent to transport him. They also took with them their livestock and the possessions they had acquired in Canaan. And Jacob and all his offspring went to Egypt. He took with him to Egypt his sons and grandsons and daughters and granddaughters, all his offspring. These are the names of the sons of Israel, Jacob and his descendants, who went to Egypt. Reuben, the firstborn of Jacob, the sons of Reuben, Hanok, Palu, Hezron, and Carmi. The sons of Simeon, Jemuel, Jamin, Ohad, Jachin, Zohar, Shaul, the son of a Canaanite woman. The sons of Levi, Gershon, Kohath, and Merari. The sons of Judah, Onan, Shelah, Perez, and Zerah. But and Onan had died in the land of Canaan. The sons of Perez, Hezron, and Hamul. The sons of Issachar, Tola, Puah, Jashub, and Shimron. The sons of Zebulon, Sered, Elon, Jehiel. These were the sons of Leah born to Jacob in Paddan Aram, besides his daughter Dinah. These sons and daughters of his were 33 in all. The sons of Gad, Zephon, Haggai, Shuni, Esbon, Eri, Arodi, and Areli. The sons of Asher, Imnah, Ishvi, and Beriah. Their sister was Sarah. The sons of Beriah, Heber, and Malchiel. These were the children of Jacob by Zilpah, whom Laban had given to his daughter Leah, 16 in all. Sons of Jacob's wife Rachel, Joseph, and Benjamin. In Egypt, Manasseh and Ephraim were born to Joseph by Asenath, daughter of Potiphera, priest of On. The sons of Benjamin, Bela, Becher, Ashbel, Gera, Naaman, Ehi, Rosh, Mupin, Hupin, and Ard. These were the sons of Rachel, who were born to Jacob, 14 in all. The son of Dan, Hushim. The sons of Naphtali, Joszel, Guni, Jezer, and Shelem. These were the sons born to Jacob by Bilhah, whom Laban had given to his daughter Rachel, 7 in all. All those who went to Egypt with Jacob, those who were his direct descendants, not counting his sons' wives, numbered 62 persons. With the 2 sons who had been born to Joseph in Egypt, the members of Jacob's family which went to Egypt were 70 in all. Now, most of us have to move our families at one time or another. If you haven't moved, then you're probably fortunate. It's amazing how much stuff there is to move when the time comes. We can only imagine how large of an entourage this would have been. 68 people. Jacob, his sons, except Benjamin and Joseph, who were waiting for them in Egypt, Jacob's grandchildren, all their belongings, their livestock, All that they had accumulated while they were in Canaan now moves from Canaan to the land of Egypt. Now let's look at verses 28 through 30. Now Jacob sent Judah ahead of him to Joseph to get directions to Goshen. When they arrived in the region of Goshen, Joseph had his chariot made ready and went to Goshen to meet his father Israel. As soon as Joseph appeared before him, he threw his arms around his father and wept for a long time. Israel said to Joseph, "Now I'm ready to die, since I have seen for myself that you are still alive." Now, there were no maps necessarily or GPS at this time, and certainly no cell phones to go into the map app, so they had to figure out exactly where they were going. And so Jacob sent his son Judah ahead of them to search out exactly where the land of Goshen was. And Joseph was waiting in eager expectation as his father neared the land he would be given to settle in. We can just imagine how great of a reunion this would have been. Not only had he been reunited with a son that he thought was dead, well, he was told was dead, but this same son was now this great ruler, this great official in the land of Egypt. And this land had prospered because of his son being there. And on top of that, the son had married, and he had sons of his own by now. So Jacob felt that his life was now fulfilled. After this tear-filled family reunion, he could now die in peace, knowing all was well. His years of mourning had now subsided, and he had regained the joy that he had when he had Joseph by his side. Now, let's finish up the chapter with verses 31 through 34. Then Joseph said to his brothers and to his father's household, "I will go up and speak to Pharaoh, and will say to him, My brothers and my father's household, who were living in the land of Canaan, have come to me. The men are shepherds. They tend livestock, and they have brought along their flocks and herds and everything they own. When Pharaoh calls you in and asks, What is your occupation? You should answer, Your servants have tended livestock from our boyhood on, just as our fathers did. Then you will be allowed to settle in the region of Goshen, for all shepherds are detestable to the Egyptians." Joseph readies his family to meet, the number one in the land, the Pharaoh himself. Joseph will go before this king first and fill him in on the whole situation with his family. His family has finally arrived, and his family is full of shepherds. They tend livestock and take care of the herds. And apparently the land of Goshen was the perfect spot for this particular occupation. Plus, not only was it close enough to Joseph that he could visit them, but it was isolated enough from the Egyptians that it was the perfect spot. And it's quite ironic that shepherds were detested by the Egyptians, considering Joseph, the son of this shepherd, had been the one who saved the entire land from the ravages of famine. One author pointed out that it seems Joseph instructed his fathers and his brothers, or his father and his brothers, to emphasize the cattle, the livestock, rather than the sheep, since shepherding was so detestable to the Egyptians. It certainly was an attempt to lie about the situation, just a way of accentuating the positive, rather than the Egyptian ruler seeing them as something negative, to looking down upon them. Maybe he would even keep them from settling there in the land of Goshen. But that wasn't the case. They were allowed to settle there, and they prospered there, as we will read in subsequent chapters later on. But for now, God is still working His plan and His purpose for this family. So, until we meet again, may God bless you and keep you and give you peace till we can meet again to study God's Word.